Are you tired of feeling lost in the chaos of midlife? Well, today on the Grace and Grit podcast, I am joined by a client of mine who also happens to be a wellness coach, Val Thompson, who is going to share with you how she transformed in her own personal life a season of crisis and chaos to really making it a comeback. And she did that by reclaiming her energy, her boundaries, and herself without apology. And I think this conversation is going to help you do the same. Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Townley, and I am so delighted today to be bringing back a series that we used to run on the Grace and Grit podcast pretty regularly. And that series was called Women of Grace and Grit. And what that series was really bringing on clients that I had worked with over the years to share their rumbles and rises with you, to share kind of their experience of working with me, to give you kind of their big ahas of the journey that they went on, and also just to normalize really the chaos of midlife, because it can be so chaotic and so incredibly disorienting. So to reignite this series, I have invited Val Thompson to the show. And I want to start by saying that Val is a wellness coach in her own right. She too works with midlife women. She's going to share a little bit of that in the episode today. But I think it's important to highlight this for podcast listeners because I love reminding you that probably 30 to 40% of my clientele is made up of trainers and nutritionists and coaches and physicians and therapists. And why is that true? Because it's one thing to know a lot about health and well-being, but it's something else to apply what we know. And there is not a human on the planet, there is not a midlife woman in existence who does not rumble in her own health journey in some way, shape, or form. We are all human. We all have gaps. We all have struggles. And just because we know a lot of information does not necessarily mean we are applying that information with any degree of consistency. So Val is going to be especially generous in this conversation because she shares with you some of her very real struggles through the midlife transition. There has been a season for her that has been especially chaotic, and she rumbled hard. And having her share that conversation with you, I hope, will help you to find some peace in your own process. So more specifically, I just want to share with you, we are going to talk about how to reclaim your energy when you feel depleted by life's demands, because there's a lot of demands that show up at midlife that we often do not expect. We are going to talk about how to make peace with the expectations that you have for your body, because a lot of women are beating themselves up because their body is not behaving in the way that it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so how do we solve that? How do we soften that? And we are also going to talk about some mindset shifts that will help you to embrace restoration as an act of self-honoring and as a real high level of self-care, because it absolutely is. So if all that sounds good for you, let's not delay this any further. We're going to get into this conversation with my dear friend and amazing client, Val Thompson. Miss Valerie Thompson, welcome to the Grace Grit podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me, Courtney. I'm so excited. You're one of my favorite people to talk to.
Anyway. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Let's do it.
So good. So good. Yeah, I love having conversations, and I think this will be really good for the audience to hear as well. So obviously I've just read your bio, but just tell people maybe from your perspective, like just how would you define Val Thompson at this stage of your life? What would you
God.
say?
That is very broad. So I'm 54. I'm a mother of two grownish boys. They're 23 and 25. I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. Loved it. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, you start getting your kids ready to graduate. I mean, that's the whole purpose. We want to get them out of the nest, and you really think you're ready. And then empty nesting really kind of threw me for a loop, which is funny because I thought I was going to have all this extra time and all this stuff. But I realized, through coaching and all the good stuff is like you keep filling up your cup because you're so used to that pace. And so age 54, Valerie, is slowing down and really, asking yourself good questions. Where do I want to be in 10 years, 20 years? Lots of changes in my life. And we can talk about those later. But yeah.
Do you think it's fair to say that you're making peace with slowing down at 54?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been really hard. And I mean, you described me well. One day you said, Val, you're like a racehorse. You go and you go and you go until you're exhausted and then, you fall over. And it took me about 3 or 4 of those times where you literally can't pick your head up. And so you start being grateful and going, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's a better idea. How can I do this better?
Well, let me explain for listeners too that pattern in you, because I've been in this pattern a million times in my life. I see it in
Yeah.
so many of my clients where we go all out, full bore. We take on all the things for all people
Yes.
all at once.
Yes.
And then inevitably what happens is we hit that brick wall, and then
Yeah.
we have to take weeks or months or years to recover. And then we
Yes.
do it all over again.
Yes.
We
And
just
that is
repeat the cycle.
the book by Gabor Mate, he talks
Yes.
about when the body says no. I've read that book probably 3 times because it is the story of me and you and all the women that I know that we just push. We just push and push and push until we're like, oh, okay. I guess it's time I stop now.
Yeah. And I think the gift of midlife is we just get very intolerant
Oh,
of
yeah.
the burnout, of the
Yes.
constant face planting, and then
Yes.
taking so long to get ourselves
Yeah.
back, in online, for lack of a
Yeah.
better way of saying it.
And that took me a long time to give myself grace for that because, nobody wants to think of old means you're slowing down. We've all got these weird definitions of what old is. And so, yeah, I had to sit down. I'm like, okay, what does this mean? And, does this mean that I am, not as good as I once was? Or does that mean I'm smarter and I'm wiser than I used to when I would do stuff that I didn't need to be doing
Oh, let's
anyway?
go with that latter definition. That's so much better. I'm
Exactly.
just getting
Exactly.
smarter.
I
Yes.
mean, come on.
So good. Okay. Well, everyone's going to hear the Southern twang. So tell them where you're from.
Oh yeah, from South Alabama. I can't believe I have a Southern twang. So I am super close to Florida borders. I'm about 2 hours from the beach. Small
Yeah.
town called Dothan, Alabama.
So great. Okay, so because you're a member of the Rumble and Rise community, which is
Yeah.
my online membership, and the way that we start all coaching calls, and this isn't just with my membership, this is how I start calls with all of my clients, is where are you winning and where are you rumbling? So I would love to
Yeah.
just start that with you today here publicly in front of thousands of people.
Okay.
Where are you winning in life right now? With slowing down, we heard that.
Yeah. So winning right now is I really have an opportunity to reframe and rebuild my life exactly like I want to. Like I discussed earlier, my kids are off. So I've got one in vet school, I've got one in dental school. Both of them are like far from home. So I don't get to see them. So I can't say, oh, well, my kids need me. So, okay, check that one off. And it's like a lot of deep questions. I feel like I have 4 years between now and when the boys get out of their schools. And it's like, okay, this is my time. And I do put a little pressure on myself. I'm like, what am I going to complain about when I'm 68 or 70, whatever, that I didn't do? And I think for me, the urgency comes from like both of my parents passed away early. My dad was 59. My mom was 68. So I was in my 30s when my
young, yeah.
mom passed away. I had 3 and a 5-year-old, and we had just moved to Dothan, and I had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
All in like 1 month out of that. Well, now we know, right? That was a lot of hormone dysregulation, but nobody talked about that then. There was no one to guide me through any of that stuff. So, yeah, I put myself in an early perimenopause and an early menopause by 47. And I think it was a lot of stress levels. And just really, it takes a toll on the body. Oh, and I was a runner, loved to run. I was just do it. And like I shared with you earlier, there was a season in my life where I was living literally on Marlboro Lights and coffee. That's a lot of stimulus.
Yeah, and you do everything full out, right? Like, you go all
Absolutely.
in with the running,
Yes.
all in with the stress,
Yes.
all in
Yes.
with
So,
the smoking.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would run and I would smoke and I would have caffeine. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's no wonder. Like I have so much respect for my body now. And I'm like, okay, I treat it much more kind than I
Yeah,
used to.
yeah.
And I'm like, this baby's got to last me for a while.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
love that as a rise, right? That I'm
Yeah.
just treating myself with so much more kindly and with so much more
Hmm.
respect and
Yeah. Yeah.
more grace. Like, that's beautiful to be able to say. So where would you say you're rumbling right now?
Okay. This makes me laugh because this is the season of my life when I literally have all the time that I want for myself.
Yes.
And what I'm rumbling with is time management.
Uh,
I mean, it's so funny because, I've got my own company. I started being a health coach about 8 years ago. And you know this better than anybody. When you are by yourself doing your own thing, it is really easy to like,
yeah,
and
like
you venture
squirrel,
out.
squirrel, squirrel. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're everything's
exactly.
important, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so I have had, big life changes with a divorce and another breakup. And so those things come with, you have to start over. You have to speak to yourself kindly. And so, yeah, time management is the thing that I'm rumbling with, but it's
Yeah.
much better than it was 6 months ago.
And I think it's such an important thing because I see it in so many of the clients that I work with because midlife is such a period of transition and it looks
Oh, yeah.
different for everybody. For some
Yeah.
people, it looks like divorce. For some people, it looks like career transition,
Yeah.
kids moving out of the house, sometimes all of the above.
Parents. Yeah.
Parents, right? That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And in that transition, I think there's so much opportunity to kind of lose our way because we feel like we're supposed to have it all figured out. I see this a
Yes.
lot with people retiring too, where
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden they have all this time on their hands
Yes.
to the point that they literally are doing nothing
Yes.
because they just feel overwhelmed maybe by opportunity.
It
Or
is.
I have a theory too that they're so freaking tired from
Yes.
pushing so hard in their
Yes.
careers that sometimes
Yes.
it takes them almost a year to kind of get their
Yeah.
energy back online. I've
I
seen
see
that
that a
as
lot.
well.
Yeah.
But it's that liminal space between coming from one identity. So for you, I hear it as like mother, wife,
Yeah.
kind of friend, that keeping the home, all the
Super
things.
volunteer. I volunteered for anything,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden being in the space where it's like, okay, well, that's
Crickets.
no more. And so
Yes.
I love how you positioned it because you said, well, I have this incredible opportunity ahead of me
Oh, yeah.
to redesign my life into what I
Yeah.
want it to be.
Yeah.
And that is such a potent way to look at it
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
something has gone wrong here. And, I'm in this situation
Yeah.
because, I mean, we could write a whole script about that would be incredibly depleting and
Well,
very demotivating.
I credit that to you and Rumble and Rise being on there because it is so easy to get sucked. You've been there with me, just get sucked in that black hole of despair. And, there was one season that I was crying so much and we
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out. And it was my estrogen, right? And it's like there's so much good that comes from HRT, but it's not like a one stick works at all. You have to play around with it and find what's optimal for you.
But
And
there was
sometimes,
also a lot of grief there, Val. Like, it wasn't just estrogen. It was
yes,
like there's a grief of transition that I think we don't talk
yes,
enough about.
yes.
We see the beauty in it, we see the
Yes.
opportunity in it, but there's also this grief of like
Oh my God.
kind of lamenting what was.
Yes. Oh, and this grief, and and I don't like to feel those uncomfortable
Oh
emotions.
yeah,
And
none
like
of us do.
feeling sad about something or grief about something, it always follows with shame. Oh, I shouldn't feel that way. I shouldn't do that. And so, yeah, I've had to sit and rumble with that feeling. And those things go back to childhood. You don't just happen upon that. And depending on whose childhood did what, for me, I had the alcoholic father. And so it does lead to some thoughts that you really have to sit with at some point in your life, either younger, mid, whatever, because usually it's something that is just negatively in your life that you can definitely work on beliefs. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Well,
From
and I think for you, there was a lot of the people pleasing and the trying to manage other people's emotions, even though that, that's like theoretically,
Yeah,
that's not your work.
exactly.
But when you are raised in a household of trying to
Yeah.
control your dad's alcoholism or your
Oh,
mom's
yeah.
emotions or whatever, we just
Exactly.
build those mechanisms at such a young age. And then
Correct.
here we are on the threshold of like 50 and beyond. And it's like, how did I get here? Like,
How
how
did
am
I
I
get here?
still practicing these things? But
Yeah.
they were just coping mechanisms that stuck with you for a really long time. And then you
Yeah.
have to stand face to face with them,
Yes.
and then start doing the work to change that, which is not easy work, as you well know. And it's work that
No.
would be so much more fun to avoid until
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not, because it doesn't
I mean,
get you anywhere.
I was in my late 30s before I ever heard the term that you don't have to listen to every thought you think. Like I was listening. Oh, that must be
And you were
true.
buying in. You weren't just
Yeah.
listening, you were buying
Yeah.
in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so like when you respect the pause, as you say, often and much,
Yeah.
things start changing.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and I have worked together for a while. I don't know how long. Do you know how long?
2 years, I looked it up because I was like, how long? So it'll be 2 years in February.
Okay, so 2
Yeah.
years in February. And what brought you in initially, do you think? Like what was the original problem you were trying to solve when you came into work
I
with me?
I was looking for support. So here I was in South Alabama. I had my business, being a health coach. Things were great. COVID happened. All the world was weird. And so 2023, we were all just coming out of this funk, I think. And yeah, I was looking on there because I wanted to find some like minded people like me that could kind of hold me accountable. And lo and behold, here's little Courtney Townley. And so I stalked you for a while, and I think I did one of your free classes or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so yeah, that's a no brainer for people that are listening, or women, especially if they're going through a hard time. Like you need some kind of accountability. That's the whole reason I coach.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
true. I think we often have that attitude of like going it alone, or what you and I think both see, and I'm just so many of my clients doing this when they first come to work with me, is there are deeper issues
Yeah.
like your nervous system work that you've had to
Yeah.
really dive into, and kind of making peace with some thoughts that you had been, using
Carrying
that
around.
were
Yeah.
damaging you. And there was so much bigger work that what you were being called into, and
Yeah.
yet it's also so easy to buy into this messaging, cultural messaging about, just get fitter, just get more
Mhm.
fit, just lose a little
Oh
bit
my
more
gosh.
weight, like just solve those
Yes.
problems and everything else
Yes.
just resolves itself.
Yes.
And that is not at all the work that we did together.
No, no. And you and I had similar stories. Like you had a story that I understood because right after you had your son, you did not feel good. And
Yeah.
everybody was complimenting you on how fast you lost the weight. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of similar with me. So right after my divorce, I lost all kinds of weight. And it wasn't that I wasn't eating, it was absolutely stress. But, I had maxed my body out, but man, I I lost a ton of weight and I got more compliments, you know,
Ah,
and it's just so bizarre. It's like we could have a whole conversation on that whole
yeah, but
thing.
this is such a great point. I love you bringing it up because it's crazy how people are conditioned to think about health, that they see
Yes.
you getting smaller and
Yes.
somehow that's worthy of praise and that's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
And yet when you really poke at the story of why that's true,
Right.
it was again like caffeine and
Yeah.
coffee and not caffeine and cigarettes and
Yeah.
stress to the
Yeah.
hilt and not taking care of yourself, probably because
Exactly.
you were in a deep stage of grief.
Right.
And yet, from the outside, we could argue, oh, but she's also a yoga teacher, right? And she's
Exactly.
also like, yeah, she looks fit and she
Yes.
looks healthy.
I
And
looked the part.
so, yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, that's
it,
really, I'm grateful. I am now to the point where I am grateful for anything that's happened in my life because I know it's led me to where I am now.
yeah,
And like having to go through, you're talking about, parents passing away early. We're talking about all the things, empty nesting, financial, worries and what's going to happen to me kind of thing. And, divorce and all the things. And so I think that's why I love to coach, because I see women just like you do, and it's so inspirational. Like when they start, crawling themselves out of these stressful events, it's just a beautiful thing to see.
So let me ask you this, knowing what you know now, coming through, we're going to call it the valley that you were in.
That's a good, Val was in the valley.
Val was
Absolutely.
in the valley and she's kind of coming up the other side. Like, what would you say, um, like health really is to you at this stage of life? Like, what would you say like healthy is to you? Yeah, for lack of a better way of saying that.
Health is hope. And because, I'm active. That's a lot of my problem as far as time management. I like to move my body. I like to walk and run and get outside and kayak and do all the things. And I have a tendency to like stack them real high. And so I always want to be able to do that. And so health now is like, okay, I want to get in and out of the bathtub, taking a soaking bath, at night. That's really important to me. I like it. I want to be able to change my own light bulb. I want to be able to carry those 50-pound bags of dog food, that I get for Buster. And so it's those things that you're like, okay, for real. If I want to age well, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to be in that space right now, over the past couple of years, what did your healing work look like for you? Because I think it's really important for listeners to hear this, because they could hear you say that and be like, oh, she's just been lifting weights and eating well and like all of the checking all the boxes that Instagram tells us to check.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not at all the work you've been doing. And I'm not saying you haven't been taking care of yourself on that level, but that's not where I have seen you doing your deepest work. So where's the work at?
So just to fill everybody in. So I had a fiance that left in November. And so that was a big heartache. And so it was, I tried to continue to do everything like I was doing, and the body just said no. And so I really had to stop my gym membership, because lifting heavy weights, I was fine in the moment, because I think, the brain will do anything that we make it do. Like we can make our body, do whatever, but it's the aftermath, right? That we're like, ugh.
Like, is it really making you well?
Exactly. Anytime I would lose weight, like I would be exhausted, like barely pick my head up. And so I had to do that, and I incorporated more yoga and less walks, which was really scary to me at the point, because, that the media scares you to death with, oh, you're losing muscle mass. Oh my God, you're not doing anything healthy. And here I am just quitting. I'm literally like cutting back as much as I can so I can like fix this nervous system of mine. And so I had massages, and I had people that do cranial sacral and Reiki, and I have a team. I have therapists, and so I have a personal trainer. So with all those people, they were kind of able to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and that was the support that I needed, because when you're in a hole, you're in a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is, especially when we're in the hole, like we just kind of dig ourselves deeper into the hole by telling ourselves we should be pushing harder. We should be trying harder. We should be adding more in.
Or I shouldn't be here.
How did I get here? Right.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right. This happens to other people, not me.
Yes. It's very dramatic.
Yeah. And yet there is the pulling back, right? Which I think is so important. We talk about it a lot on this show, but that permission to pull back so you can eventually move forward again. And I know that that's scary for a lot of people, because they feel like if I give myself permission to pull back, I'm never going to get going again.
Oh my gosh, that was a ginormous fear.
And yet it's like, well, you have to reestablish resources. You have to replenish resources. And how is that ever going to happen if you just keep pushing all the time? Well, and so I think it's something you only learn by giving yourself the grace to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, because I try to talk to my kids now, 54-year-old mom trying to talk to 20-something-year-old boys about, you don't have to do everything in 1 year, or you can slow down. And they're like, whatever.
You're crazy, right?
Yeah, whatever.
Crazy talk, Mom.
I mean, I think I told you, like at age 27, I moved myself by myself drove a U-Haul from like Dothan, Alabama to Birmingham, Alabama, which is about 3.5 hours. I had my cat in my cab and I was pulling my little Ford Escort. Didn't think a thing about it. Like if you made me do that today,
You were
I
probably
don't
doing it with a Marlboro Light and a coffee.
possibly.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Right. And now today, the idea of that
Oh
makes
yeah.
you what? Anxious?
Yeah, it was just like, oh my, well, I'm very proud of myself for being able to do that. But it's like, God, no wonder, that was just so much. I didn't even think about stress. Of course, we don't think about it. We just do what we need to do, right? And pay the consequences later. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Just now I'm like, I don't think I could do that right now if I had to, but maybe, who knows?
Will you speak a little bit into your relationship around self-confidence? Because it sounds to me like, especially even just through that story, right?
Yeah.
Like there was this period of time in your youth where you were very
Oh, my,
confident.
yeah.
And then there was a period later in your life where some of that confidence got
Yeah.
squashed and you had to
Yeah.
start doing the work of rebuilding it. And I think
Yeah.
so many women listening can relate to that, where it's
Yeah.
like they kind of get to an age and they take a good look at themselves and like, how the hell did I get here? Like, this isn't who
Right.
I was. I used
Right.
to never question going to take a class or speaking up at
No.
an event.
Yeah.
And now I don't even want to leave the house because
Right.
I question everything.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
can you
Yeah.
relate to that?
Oh, totally. Because I don't know. In my 20s and 30s, I was very confident. I mean, I've always been able, we moved. My ex-husband was in medical school. So we started out in Birmingham. We left and went to Charleston, back to Birmingham to Dothan with two kids. Right. And so we did what we had to do. No worries. And I'm glad we did it. But now it's like, just going to public seems like it's really hard these days. I'm like, oh, this couch really is comfortable. And I've never been a TV watcher, but I've like the whole time management with the phone and those numbing mechanisms. And that's been just, the phone is a different creature altogether. I can't imagine if we would have had that in our 20s, how
Yeah.
different life would have been. But yeah. So yeah, I
But
can definitely relate to that.
and the phone and the technology in general, I think it almost allows us to live smaller,
Yeah,
right? I mean, there's so much that we don't have to go do
correct.
anymore because we can just order our groceries. We
Yeah,
can pretty much have anything delivered to our home,
correct.
and we can pretty much find anything we need online.
Yeah. I tell that to my yoga people all the time. It's that balance between effort and ease of like, okay, I want to be strong. I want to do this. And then the other part of like, oh, but I don't have to. I'm loving myself. And like, you've got to really be honest with yourself on, compassion, discipline. Where's my balance? And what annoys me, I think, about this age is that I don't know. Like some mornings I wake up and I'm like, yes, grass is green, everything's good, whatever. But other mornings I'm crawling out of bed and I'm like, what just happened? And so tracking my food intake, doing all those things, that took a lot of, I mean, I gave up alcohol, I gave up sugar. I've probably tried every diet. There was a lot of things because I could not understand why I didn't have energy. And I just went on a super health quest. Again, I think it was because my parents died so early
Yeah.
that I'm like, okay, we're checking all the boxes here. But anyway, I can ramble on.
So good. I love it. Okay, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions about just your experience in Rumble and Rise. And
Okay.
then we're going to get into some of your coaching work because I really I
Okay.
want listeners to hear about this.
Yeah.
So, what do you think as a member of Rumble and Rise? Like you've worked with me privately, but you've also
Mhm.
been in that community because that's just a part of working with me privately.
Right.
What do you think the most valuable part has been?
Okay. So I like your workshops personally. I like it when they're live because I
Yeah.
like to be a part of it. But the other benefit is that if you can't make it, you've got them. And so you've got the tools there. I think a lot of them, your ability to break things down, easy, you're very patient. And so you give us
Can you tell
that.
that to my husband?
Yeah, Amy, just pat yourself on the shoulder. I
Yeah,
should
yeah.
say. So anyway, that's what I like about Rumble and Rise. And of course, coming out to Montana, that was super fun. I mean, I
Yeah.
like to meet everybody, and you see these people online, and then you get to see them in person. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. I
Yeah.
love the retreats.
Yeah.
Did anything surprise you about being inside that space in terms of like, yeah, did anything strike you as surprising or unexpected?
How easy you make it seem. You know, here. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, that looks awesome.
Yeah, right.
And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I'm also very real. I definitely
Oh,
think I'm
yeah.
very real in terms of like the reason I always joke that the reason I teach that all this work is because I need it as much as anybody needs it.
Exactly. Well,
And
that's the
I
whole reason I coach. I mean, honestly, the most growth that I've had is through my business
yeah,
because you do have to learn to be patient. You do have to learn to ask for help. I don't really like to ask for help.
yes.
That's uncomfortable. And but yeah, so definitely.
Okay, so I always talk about Rumble and Rise as a space of self-leadership for women to
Yeah.
learn how to lead themselves better in the health arena.
Yes.
But what you've learned in that space, how do you think it has helped you in other areas of your life outside of health and well-being?
Well, again, it led to a lot of questions. And so what I liked about the groups and then again with private coaching with you is that you encourage me, keep asking questions, keep,
Yeah.
let's see where this is going to lead us. And then with the gut health, and you always have great people on. You've got a great team. I love Lainey. She gives some
Yeah.
good information. So I've already forgotten the question.
Oh, see, that's okay. That's midlife. Everyone can relate to that. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we were going somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just how's the work in Rumble and Rise helped you in other
Yeah,
areas
yeah,
of your
yeah.
life?
And
Yeah.
so, well, first, it's inspired me for my own business sake. I mean, being able to see another woman,
Yeah.
taking on the health and wellness arena and like telling people, hey, it's not all about the weight. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a powerful message. And so for me, that's given me confidence because I've gained some weight, which I think it's good weight, but nevertheless, it's still weight. And because weight has been such a big part of my life, how much I weighed, had a lot to do with my value. I hate to say that out loud,
I
but
know, but the listeners need to hear it because we can all relate to that.
I mean, it hurts my heart just to say that. But yeah, and so it's helped me in that area to keep showing up for myself. And so, it's okay. It's not all about the weight. You don't want what is it you always say? You don't want your life's project to be just about your body.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And can you imagine where you would be right now if you had spent the last 2 years hyper focusing on your weight with
Oh,
everything else that you were going through and with everything else that needed healing and attention?
I don't think I'd be smiling as much for sure. I'd be a lot grumpier. And then, like a lot of people assume the quantity of their food is what the problem is. When
Mhm.
actuality, it's not the quantity at all. It's the bad stuff. It's the process. It's the alcohol. It's the sugar. It's the whatever. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about just because you are a coach and you're a
yeah.
coach for midlife women, which is
Hmm.
amazing. And what got you into coaching originally? Because you said you've been a coach now for what, 8 years?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so why did you enter those waters?
Well, like most everybody, we go in there going, I want to help. I want to help. And
Yeah.
so that was me. I wanted to help. I had, so again, 30s, mom passed away, all this stress was going on. I had a miscarriage. And so they offered Lexapro. It wasn't helping, but I got, that was the beginning of all my stomach troubles. And so it was very acid reflux. They had me on like 5 different medications at the time. I came off all of them at one time. I don't recommend that. But I started journaling my food. And that was the first time that I really realized how much that you could affect the way you think, the way you show up, your energy level from food. And it became such a aha moment that I was like, I need to share this. And so I thought I was going to be a registered dietitian, started going back to school. for that. And then I got halfway through it, and I've got great friends that are registered dietitian, but that's just wasn't where I was going. There was a lot of Kellogg's is in there, Pepsi's in there. We all know that they're not the healthiest foods. So anyway, I started looking at this health coaching stuff. Nobody was a health coach. Nobody even knew what a health coach was.
Health coach didn't exist when I started. That term was not even a thing. Yeah.
And so I literally felt like I was just giving myself a title.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I'd already been teaching yoga. And so I started this business, and I was brick and mortar. I was actually at the yoga studio I teach at, and was seeing clients, I was doing social media and everything was going. And then the world stopped with 2020, and we were all like, okay. And so I started online coaching, and I think that's how a lot of us. What year did you start doing online?
Online 2013. I've been like
Okay.
way too long. I know.
Yeah.
So
That's
long.
great. Yeah. So you got to see a whole lot more. I mean, just in the little time that I've been, it's very interesting, watching.
What's really funny is how I started it wasn't even technically online. I was on the phone. So I was working with clients remotely, all by phone.
Yeah.
For years.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then, I was working with a company at the time, and she had a website. So that's kind of how people found us. And it was all word of mouth. But then, eventually I had to build my own ecosystem, right? I had to build a website, and and then Zoom became a thing. And now my whole day is spent in front of the computer. But it is funny. And I really do. There's something I miss about the old days of just on the phone, because I do think that as long as a client, it has integrity with themselves and they are truly present with you when you're talking to them.
Yes.
It takes a lot of stimulus away to be on the phone, because you're not looking at them.
Correct.
Right? They're just listening to your voice and vice versa. And there was just something really great. My calls were only 15 minutes because all I did was give people basically macros and exercise programs. So I could get that done and dusted in like a few minutes.
Do this, do this, do this.
Yeah. It was completely checkbox oriented. Like, this is what you're going to do this week. And then we'll follow up next week, see the progress you've made, which was, of course, how much do you weigh?
Yes.
And then we would rotate into, years of work like that. And it was effective until it wasn't, right? Until I just saw so many women starting to backslide. And even though they got to these amazing goal weights, they still weren't happy. And there were so many parts of their life that were still broken. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So anyway, yes, but back in the day, it was on the phone.
Well, and I think that's, health coach is a very loose term. And, I like to tell women, what I do. And it's like, I don't tell you what to do. So if you're looking to me for that meal plan or whatever, and I think you and I are both in that same arena, it's like, we're not going to tell you what to do. We're actually going to give you the questions so you can design your whole life. And I just think that's amazing. What a great gift.
What a great gift. And you alluded to that earlier. Like, I'm always throwing questions at you to solve your own problems. And people listening.
It does aggravate me when you don't.
I know, it aggravates all of us. But all of my best coaches have done the same thing. Because it's like we're reminding you to insource, right? Yeah. And it's not to say, like, if you're really up against a wall and you're stumped, obviously, we're going to help solve the problem. We're going to help give you some things to try.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the only way any kind of behavior change becomes sustainable is if we give people the power to sustain it, which means we have to consistently be asking ourselves good questions. And man, most people don't ask themselves questions. They just do what everyone around them is doing. Correct. They buy into what culture is selling, right? It's kind of like this herd mentality, and it's so damaging to our health and well-being because we buy into so much insanity.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you can see that on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, that's another beast in itself. And I know you and I have talked about the love-hate relationship we have on social media, but it is a love-hate, because it's like, okay, you want people to hear this message of like, okay, but then like, am I just adding to the noise of everybody out there? Yeah.
Right. I know it's easy to go there, but I truly believe that it's like there has to be the people countering the noise.
They have to be.
There have to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. So how has your own midlife journey impacted the way that you coach and run your business?
Ooh, I have so much more empathy. When you go through harder things, it's layers and vulnerability and all the things. And so I am definitely a lot kinder I still hold accountability, but I'm like, okay, so you didn't do what you thought you were going to do. What are you going to make it mean?
Yeah.
Because that's one of my favorite questions that you asked me. It's like, okay, what are you making that mean? And I'm like, anyway. So yeah, I think I've had to have more grace and like really learn the tools that I'm teaching my clients of like how to what am I going to do? How am I going to build this? And so I don't coach anybody differently than I coach myself. And so the more that I practice the tools that I'm teaching everybody else, I think that just makes you a better coach, right? Because
Absolutely. You gotta walk your
yeah,
talk.
yeah, you got to walk your walk and talk your talk for sure.
It's funny. I think about that a lot. Like there's definitely a swath of people I would love to go back to and just say, I'm so sorry. I just
I
didn't know.
know.
I
Yes.
just
Oh
didn't
my
know any
God.
better. I didn't know what midlife was. I didn't realize the rumble with hormones. I didn't realize like the stress of life at this
Yes.
stage. There's
Yes.
so many things I didn't understand. And then of course the way I approached it was just fix
Yeah.
your body.
Yes.
Right?
What's wrong with
So
you? Yeah.
we've come a
And
long
the
way.
and then even when you have older clients, so like I've had a couple of ladies in their late 60s and 70s, and that is I love to coach women in that because I love to hear they want to do better. They know they're not, making their selves better, and
Mhm.
they still have that drive. And I think that's what being a human's all about, like of just finding that purpose, or I hate to say purpose. I don't know. You're finding your drive. We'll say that.
It's funny you say that, the purpose part, because I've
Yeah.
always rumbled with that too, because I feel like we decide our purpose. It's not something
Yes.
that's bestowed upon us. Uh,
Yes.
but I also think the thing that I am passionate about talking about, and I think you are too, is that we help people to live on purpose.
Yes.
And that's something different, right?
Yes.
It's just living with intention and just deciding the type of person you want to be,
Yeah.
and then aligning all the bits that are not
Yes.
necessarily helping you to travel in that direction.
Correct. And
Yeah.
it's the word is alignment. I
Yeah.
like that a lot because, at the end of the day, I don't want to be known as the woman that watched her shows. I mean, my grandmother did. I love her, but that's what I remember about her last 20 years is watching her shows or the Weather Channel. And I'm like, okay, is that not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'd like to stay active as long as I want to stay active, I guess is what I'm saying.
I wish I remember who the article was about, but I remember reading somewhere at some point that there was, it was like a 95-year-old man who still had a 10-year plan. And I was like, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
I still want to have a 10-year plan when I'm
Yes.
90, 95. I mean, it
Yes.
doesn't have to be climbing insane mountains and, doing insane things, but just that, like you said, that drive to get up and pursue something each day.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like if I lose that, really, what's the point? Like,
Well, yeah, and I know with just seeing my parents, of course, they did not age well, dying at 59 and 68. But, you look back at your childhood and go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense of why I think, some of those things. But if I want to be different, I need to do differently than what
yeah.
my parents did. And so now I'm just trying to figure out what is that difference? What is that main thing? I may
Yeah,
start
well,
like you
watching
did.
all the work you've done over the past couple of years, I would say you've definitely been doing it differently because
Yeah.
that's not, it's just not easy work. It's not easy work to take responsibility for our own healing, right? Which
Absolutely.
is why a lot
Yeah.
of people just don't do it. It's easier to give
Yeah.
it over to the medical system. It's easier to like blame it on other things. But when you really
Absolutely.
take ownership,
Yeah.
that's work. Like that is some of the hardest work you'll ever do. And I also love what you said before too. Like I always say healing's a team sport.
Yes.
Like healing requires a lot of support from
Yeah.
a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
And that doesn't all have to be paid, of course.
No.
Like there's a lot of support groups and books and free
And churches.
podcasts
Yeah.
and churches where we can get a lot of additional support. But the more support you have in your healing journey, I truly
Yeah.
think the more likely it is that you'll get
So
close.
here's my thoughts on like free help is great. Like
Yeah.
if that's where you go, but I do think there's something, even if like Rumble and Runs, that is a great economical way
Yeah.
to hold yourself accountable. Because I do think at the end of the day, there has to be some kind of give and take, because
Investment, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and sometimes because we don't necessarily have the self-respect we would like to have yet, I say
Yeah.
yet because that's
Yeah.
always the goal. And sometimes like having a monetary investment, like it's just enough of a pull. It's going to hurt just enough if I don't
Yeah.
actually do this work. Then,
Yes.
then it kind of acts as a motivator for a period of
Yes.
time. That is
I mean,
absolutely true.
I know you see it all the time. Women come in and they've tried to patch their health together based on Instagram or Facebook Reel
Yeah.
or TikTok.
Yeah.
And they come in and they're so overwhelmed and they're so
Mhm.
confused and they don't even know where to start. And they have like a list of 100 things that they know they should be doing, but they're in freeze because they've overwhelmed themselves so much. And so
Well, and
that,
the story is always, I've tried everything and nothing works. And it's like, okay, but how much of that did you actually do consistently over time? Well,
yes,
none of it.
yes,
And so
yes.
therein lies the problem. So let's like scale it way back and let's just
Oh my God.
decide on what makes the most sense to focus in on
Yes,
right now. And obviously,
yes,
coaching can help people figure that out. So, on that note, I do want to share with listeners that you're offering some free coaching sessions, which I definitely think
yes.
people should take you up on
Yeah,
because
yeah.
free
So
coaching is
it's a
amazing.
discovery call where you get to know me and I get to know you to see if we're a fit. I am revamping, and so I'm only taking private clients right now. I'm working on some good projects to be able to bring to other people a little bit later in the season. But yeah, if they
Awesome.
want to call, we'll put my website on there. They can do that, and my Instagram title is Val Health Coach. So yeah,
Val Health Coach. Okay, is
yeah.
Instagram. And remind me of what your website is?
ValeriesHealthAndWellness.com.
ValeriesHealthAndWellness.com. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then the link we'll also put it on the podcast page where
Oh,
this is
good.
on my website. So
Thank
anyone
you.
who's listening, if you just go to this episode on the Grace and Grit on the Grace and Grit website page, which is graceandgrit.com if you don't know, you'll find the link to her free consult page, and you'll also find the link to her website. So all that will
Perfect.
be there for you. Okay,
Yeah.
I have one more question for you before we go.
Let's
I
do it.
used to ask this all the time. I feel like I'm bringing so much back today. We're bringing back Women of Grace and Grit, and we're also bringing back this question that I used to ask every guest on the show, which is, at this stage of life, how do you define grace and how do you define grit? Grace is what?
Grace is having the ability to say no. And I don't know why that keeps coming up, but that's what I feel. It's like the ability to say no, with grace. The grit part is about, getting your fingers in, you're getting your teeth in it, and you're like, no matter what, this is going to work. It's kind of like building your business. I'm sure there's been lots of times for you when you had to like hang on. You wrote a book, for goodness
It
sake.
kind of feels like every day. If we're being honest, I feel like every day I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where this
Yeah.
is going. But my husband's question, and it's such a good one,
Yeah.
because obviously he sees me rumble with a lot of things in my business. And he'll always say when he sees I'm having a hard day, he'll be like, babe, do you still love it? And I'm like, damn it, yes, I still love it. And he's like, okay, then keep going.
Right.
Right. And that, I would say, is one of the gifts for me in midlife, is just realizing more and more that the true gold is not in the outcome of my life as much
Yes.
as in enjoying the process of my life.
Yes. And we
And
determine if we enjoy it or not. I
if we
mean,
say that again, we determine what?
we determine if we're enjoying it, right?
Yeah,
So
of
if we
course.
cram so much on our plate that we're not enjoying it, or we're not doing anything, we're not enjoying it. And so again, it comes back to that sweet little mid ground.
Yeah, it really does. And just and being able to wake up each day, even though there's always things we don't want to do. I tell my son that all the time, because every time he has to empty the dishwasher, or he now he has a summer job, right? And he comes
Yeah.
home and he's like, oh, it's work. And I'm like, you know what, babe? There's always going to be things that we don't enjoy about every job,
Yeah.
or going to work out, or the things that we have to do to be healthy. There's
Yeah.
always going to be that bit. But if
Yes.
you can find ways to enjoy it a little bit
Yes.
more, you're
Yes.
going to keep doing it. You're going to keep showing up, and you're going to reap the benefits of that.
Yes.
And so that's kind of my even with paying bills and cleaning my house, like, how can I do this with just a little bit more joy? So
Yes.
I just stay consistent with it. And it
Yeah.
is a game changer.
Yeah. I'll have
So
to send you, there's a YouTube video of this little girl, and I saw it at a Joe Dispenza event,
yeah,
and she's like in the mirror and she's like, I'm great. I'm going to have a good day. And I'm like, some mornings that's what it's like. It's
oh,
like, okay.
Right.
We're going to do this.
We're totally going to do this. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Oh, I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day, but this was great. I think we covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of goodness in this episode, and I really appreciate you making the time.
Oh my gosh, I've been looking forward to this. Like, you're one of my favorite people to talk to, and so we don't get to spend near as much time together. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, have a great day.
All right, see ya.
Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.